Well, to close this special feature really, on my cactus collection episode 3, I thought I would share this, what is probably my biggest and definitely the heaviest plant in my collection, this Cylindropuntia subulata, or Opuntia cylindrica, or whatever name you want to give it, but this Argentinian cylindrical growing monstrosity. There's quite a history behind this plant, there really is, because I had a plant in a 3.5–4 inch pot for maybe 10 years, and in that 10 years it had grown 3 or 4 inches, and it was about, I suppose, about 8 inches tall. And something happened to it. I don't know, because it's quite frost hardy. I don't really know what happened to it, but something happened to it, and the growing tip got damaged. And as the growing tip got damaged, 2 little branches came out from the side towards the base. I took those off and I potted each one up as a separate plant, and they seemed to grow much more quickly than the original plant had done. So each one of them ended up in an 8-inch pot. Well, to cut a long story short, at the end of the first year they were about 16 to 18 inches high, and I then put them both together into a much larger pot. I think it was a 10-inch pot, something like that, and they started to branch and grow vertically at an incredible pace. And then about 2 years ago I realised that the plant was about a metre tall, something like that, and at that point I put it into a larger pot still. So I planted the 2 original plants because they were originally from the same base, and I thought, I know, I'll go for a bushy effect. I'll try and get as much plantage in this pot as I possibly can. And to cut a long story short, it went absolutely berserk. So the plant is now just coming up to 5 foot 6 inches high. I repotted it last year and it fell on me, and these incredible needle sharp 1 inch long spines, one of them actually pounced off my eyebrow because it overbalanced, because obviously the plant is full of liquid, or moisture I should say, and thus a plant of this size is very, very heavy, and it was difficult to carry. So as I was moving it to the potting area, it overbalanced. I didn't want to damage the plant, obviously. I've had it for nearly 20 years, and I was very lucky to not to have the spine go into my eye. Is the point of the story really, but I won't make it a long story. So these larger growing specimen plants, which is the focus after all of this particular section, are incredibly impressive, but incredibly difficult to look after. So if I put this guy on the staging, obviously that's impossible because it would actually be touching the glass. In fact, it wouldn't go on the staging. So the only place it will go is on the floor. And it's a great shame really, because ultimately you just don't know what you will do with this plant, because in about 2 feet time it will be at the ceiling of the glass, and the only thing I can do really is try and find a botanical garden or similar that would take the whole thing, because I would never divide it, I would never chop it up into individual Cylindropuntiets just to make money. And I've tied it up, which again is not something I would normally do. I've put some binding around it just to keep it all together. But that will be coming off very, very soon, because after I repotted it, it was quite, because of the height, it was quite wobbly. But I think the roots are firmly established now. And to cut a long story short, that is the Opuntia from, I won't say hell, that would be very unkind. But it's a large plant, it's difficult to maintain, but it is absolutely magnificent. Okay, so that was specimen plant number 1, Cylindropuntia had this plant, this Ferocactus melocactiformis, for a staggering number coming up now, 48 years. I have had this plant for 48 years, and it should be much bigger and much better than it is. But there have been times in its life when I've been interested in other things, and its growth has been neglected, and it probably went a year or two without even being watered, poor thing, unless a relative, mothers and wives and other people, threw some water on it just to keep the poor thing alive. But there we are. It's about 8 inches across, about 7 inches high. Ferocactus melocactiformis. Okay, that's specimen plant, or specimen cactus number 2. Good afternoon and welcome back to Kirkstone. Today is a much lovelier day. It's a little bit windy. You can see the plants moving around in the Kirkstone garden, but there's intermittent sunshine, and altogether it's a much more cheerful day. Now, on a recent video we had a look at a delivery from Knobs and Blobs, and that is basically the theme for today's project, which is potting up these 3 ferocacti. So we have Ferocacti gracilis coloratus, we have Ferocactus glaucescens, and we have this absolutely gorgeous and fabulous 3-headed Ferocactus hystrix, which is the one I'm actually going to concentrate on, because the procedure will be exactly the same for all 3. So what I'm going to do first is to make space and try and be reasonably organised. So what I'm going to do is to take these 3 plants away and leave the one that I'm actually going to do. So I'll take Ferocactus glaucescens and Ferocactus gracilis coloratus, and leave me with Ferocactus hystrix. Now the thing about Ferocactus hystrix is it's a typical member of the Echino or Chinocactinae group. So those Ferocactus, Leuchtenbergia, Astrophytum, plants of that general Homalocephala texensis and others can be very large and impressive plants. The group which is known as the barrel cacti, mainly the Echinocactinae group, mainly Echinocactus, which Homalocephala texensis has now been subsumed into, and Ferocactus. The large barrel cactus groupings can be enormously large and impressive plants, but, and it's a big but, they can have quite weak and small root systems. Now the implications for that can be summed up in one very simple mnemonic. Always pot them into the smallest pot you can, because the larger the pot, the more moisture it will hold and the more tendency there will be to lead to root rot. So very, very simply, I put about ½ an inch of pure compost in the bottom, which is, as you know, my habit, and I'm breaking up any lumps. Now I've found that putting this compost in the bottom dries out very quickly and actually makes quite an effective drainage system. So it has the dual advantages of being very well drained and also serving as a nutrient reservoir, because what I do next is I take a high phosphate, low nitrogen fertilizer and I'll mix that in top of the compost. So I'll just swirl that round, and then I'll look to see the size of the plant is roughly appropriate for the pot. Now that's probably the smallest I can get away with, because we don't need a large pot, but we don't need a pot that's too small and looks ridiculous either. So it's a very careful balancing act. Next thing I'll do, apart from to put the pot into the potting receptacle, is I'll take the compost. Now the compost is only 30% humus. The compost is 33% natural leaf mould, 33% coarse horticultural sand, and 33% coarse grit. Now, as you can see, that's quite a sandy, gritty mix. Although it looks quite brown, which might give you the impression that there's a lot of humus in there, there really isn't. It's a very small amount of humus, 30% or less. So the first thing we'll do is we'll fill up the bottom of the pot to a level where the bottom of the roots will start touching it. Now, I don't ever fold the roots and I don't ever twist the roots. I try and maintain the position that the roots already had when they came out of their previous pot. So I need a tiny bit more in there. Now, it's also worth saying that I've mixed a very small amount of bone meal into this mix. So we've got maybe, I don't know, a large spoon load of bone meal mixed into that whole bucket. Right, that's roughly the position that we need to be in. Now I'm carefully holding the plant so as not to damage those impressive central spines, but also to keep the three heads together, because the last thing I want is one of the three heads, indeed two of the three heads, to break off. So I'm making sure that the plant is positioned roughly where I want it and at the height that I want it. And then I'll fill in that coarse, gritty compost mix around the roots. And at sporadic intervals, I'll shake the pot to work the soil particles in amongst the finer roots. Now, I did read something interesting the other day that said that October, which it is right now, is about the last time you can really repot cacti without risk. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but the theory behind it was a lot of succulent plants can only make new roots at temperatures of a steady 6 degrees centigrade upwards. So basically, if you risk potting them at a later date than that in our climate, where the temperatures can average 5 to 6 degrees for a long time, then the risk of rot to the roots is greatly increased, unless of course you keep the plants completely dry. Now, I've got a good layer of compost around there to within about ½ an inch of the top, and I'm now doing the much promised shaking round to bed the pot down. Now, of course, as I tap the pot, the particles are moving into spaces and the layer of the plant is actually falling. So what I need to do now is to very slightly lift that plant up so that I've got a position that I'm more comfortable with in terms of the height of the plant. And that I'm happy with. So the vast majority of the roots, 99% of the roots, are now where I need them to be. So now we can start thinking about the aesthetics of the plant, which is to do a nice gritty topping layer. Now this is brand new horticultural grit which just arrived this morning. So the pebble size is approximately 3 to 8 millimeters. So much larger than the sand, but not quite pebble sized. So I'll just fill in on the other side here, taking very careful attempts to cover all of the soil and make sure the level of the grit is the same all the way around. So there, how long did that take? A very spiny cactus, about 5 minutes or so. Nothing's been lost. So the grit is in the receptacle again. The compost is back in the compost bin. We have a label that we've pre-prepared. So Ferocactus hystrix from Knobs and Blobs 2 on eBay. My plant label goes in the back. I always put it in the back and not the front because I want to see the plant. And what we have there is a very, very attractive plant. So that is Ferocactus hystrix, all potted up, ready for display. Well, in my case, to rejoin its friends on the bench. Now, I've just very recently become interested in these Ferocacti. I do have one Ferocactus which I've actually had for 50 years, believe it or not, and I'll show you that plant in another video and talk about it. That's Ferocactus melocactiformis, which is a much larger plant. But that's that beautiful three-headed Ferohystrix done. So I'll move on to the other two now, but the procedure will be exactly the same, so I won't show you it. There will be pictures of this plant going up on the Kirkstone Botanica Facebook page, and some really nice high quality pictures slightly later will go on to Kirkstone Botanica 2007 on Instagram. But for now, it's goodbye from me. I've got a lot to do today, so I can't hang about. And it's goodbye from my Cerberine, my three-headed Ferocactus hystrix. It's a beautiful, beautiful plant. Another fantastic high-quality plant from Knobs and Blobs 2 on eBay. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye. Specimen cactus number 3 is this large clump, which again I've had for about 30 years, of Mammilaria bombicina. Now this was an individual plant which was bought from a supermarket, I believe. I'm trying to think of the name of the supermarket. Anyway, it's probably Asda, the British equivalent of Walmart. And it was a single head, and now it has 40 heads, each of which is about 3 inches in diameter, and the whole plant therefore is approximately 16 inches across and about 4 inches high. Mammilaria bombicina in a clump. Okay. There we are, Mammilaria bombicina, specimen plant number 3. Specimen plant number 4 is this large Astrophytum ornatum. Again, a larger plant, about 4 inches across, about 4.5 inches high. And one of the 4 or 5 real specimen Astrophytum that we have. I'm trying to restrict the word specimen to plants which are over 3 inches in diameter, 4 inches in diameter, so a bit larger than most of the others is probably the best way of putting it. Astrophytum ornatum. I have got a smaller specimen of this plant, but that's that one. Good morning and welcome back to Kirkstone. I have within my field of vision a large box which is clearly identified as being from Southfield Nurseries. So as part of this ongoing Echinocacti exploration, I think it might be apposite to have a look what is in this box. Now there's a packing label which I don't want to look at because that would spoil the surprise, and nobody likes to spoil a surprise. What could possibly be in this large box, from this large and very well protected box? I think I'll buy myself a knife for Christmas. I'm not sure that these rusty old scissors are really up to the job anymore. Right, I think we can wrestle our way in from there. Now there's an interesting, if somewhat cryptic note. A gift from guess who? A gift from me, a gift. Whilst it's an undeniable truth that I do deserve gifts from all directions, I'm still relieved to get one every so often. I'll just chuck this paper in all directions. And we have something which feels as if it may be a pot at the bottom, and there is a label which I can read, but as I said earlier, I don't want to spoil any pre-Christmas surprises, and I shall carefully peel open layer by layer. And I can see an amazing, look at that, there's a clue. Can you see that red spine there? Wow. A clue as to the identity, the mystery will be unrevealed, not really, will be revealed very, very soon. And I have to be as careful as possible in unpacking this fabulous, when I say fabulous, I mean fabulous, this fabulous plant, and I'm trying to open it without revealing it until the critical moment, and the critical moment is there. Now just look at that. Just look at that. Now, for anybody who may have any kind of a fetish for the larger growing barrel cacti, or in my books, the genera Ferocactus, Cactus, Homalocephala, Astrophytum, Luxemburgia, and others of that spiny ilk, that is an absolute gem. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully discard this paper whilst trying to retain as much compost as possible, because it is my habit to reuse compost. And you do get these people who say, oh, you should never reuse compost, it carries germs. Well, in the cactus and bulb world, if a plant does arrive with compost, it will be very, very dry and almost certainly biologically inert. So this gift for me, gift from guess who, this gift for me from Southfield Nurseries is a much, much desired plant. Can you see that? Ferocactus gracilis variety coloratus. So this is the extremely well armed, and indeed extremely well armoured, red spined Ferocactus, which I shall now gather the compost of and replace. It is, considering it's been sent in a pot, and it's been sent in a pot, in a box, intact, it is remarkable how much of that is still all together. Now I'm just moving this compost around here. Now Ferocacti and Echinocacti generally do not have very well developed root systems. In the wild, in the desert, in the dry arid conditions within which they live, they can. But their root systems are never as expansive as some other cacti. And because of that, you do often see very large specimen-sized plants in people's houses, especially in the States. There we are, trying to get that centralised. More or less doing it because it's so dry. Often in the States, growing in minuscule pots, and you think, oh, that poor plant. Why have they kept that plant in a pot so small? But you often do see photographs, if you were willing to Google and spend some time, of ferocacti and echinocacti in pots that are this size, but the plants are actually football size. And I've really just hurt my finger there. That is an astonishing plant. Just look at the spines on that plant. That is absolutely amazing. That is an absolutely amazing plant. Right, I'm going to try and put it into a good position, and then scan in. That is an absolutely beautiful, brilliant plant, and exactly what I wanted. Look at that. Ferocactus gracilis coloratus. Now you can see that there's a little pebble there I'll need to get rid of. It's got lodged in between the spines. Let's see if I can do that in one easy swoop with the old plant label. There we are. The earliest spines are quite the sort of normal size. You know, if you bought a small ferocactus and it had spines like this, you'd say, oh yeah, well, there's a ferocactus and it's got spines like that. But you often see pictures of these in habitat where they've got the maximum infrared and ultraviolet light, and the spines are literally massive, thick, great things, almost covering the plant. And when you look up to the plant, there you are. I am not disappointed. The mature growth on these later growing spines towards the top of the plant shows you where this name coloratus comes from. It is vividly coloured, incredibly bright red interlaced spines. It is without doubt the best ferocactus I've seen in real life. I've seen pictures of plants which are impressive, but I've never seen a plant that looks like that. That is an absolute bloody masterpiece of growth. I love it to bits. I really do. Okay, so thank you very much, and I shall be in communication later. That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Ferocactus gracilis coloratus, an absolute ruby spined monster. Marvellous. Okay, tune in soon.